Robinhood Radio presents award-winning author John Neufeld with Side Effects.
We all have friends who, the moment we say something optimistic, let their mouths turn down, a frown appear, and warn us. If only you hadn't said that. Now there's no chance at all of that happening. If we say we need rain, their reply is, now it'll never come. So we begin to censor ourselves around this wonderful pal. We keep our own counsel and hopes, lest we let loose an idea and a forecast. It would be wonderful in a way if their fears were baseless. Then we might mention civil war without worry, without planting that particular seed in anyone's mind. Let's be gutsy. How about martial law? We've been writing and blogging and podcasting these past 5 years about the danger posed by the American version of North Korea's Kim, over there adoringly called Dear One by his native populace. Our American Dear One turns out to be far more dangerous than our nuclear friend across the Pacific. What has seemed most remarkable to pundits about our Dear One is that he telegraphs every harebrained scheme, every unconstitutional idea that floats through his noggin. For our favorite pessimists, every time we warn about Dear One's next move, they don't have time enough to be superstitious and worry themselves sick. Donald has already made his move, often even before he tips his hand. From small or great distances, we, among others, have been able to forecast what Dear One is up to. Right now, we have all been treated to a step-by-step progression from little inconsequential lies to the edge of declaring martial law in our republic. The roadmap has all along been anything but secret. What would we imagine to normally follow the sending of federal, quote, troops into a temporarily seemingly riotous territory? If well planned and strategically organized, we expect order. Law and order should follow an invasion of discipline. Order should be expected as the result. But Dear One never plans ahead. Therefore, there are no best-laid plans to go awry. Dear One has made a pattern wherein whatever he touches turns, in a word, to excrement. Alas, this includes human beings, those ensnared in his inviting, and who knows, perhaps economically viable, arms, who will not only end up imprisoned and or disbarred, but also with reputations and fortunes shattered. Forget about their family's good name. As we read weekly in newly released memoirs, for Dear One, cruelty is an ice cream sundae atop his hardly digested hamburger or pizza. It's not just that he seeks and finds someone's weak spot and then worries it savagely. Timing is vitally important. It matters to destroy just before a victim's retirement, before the death of his or her spouse, just as he or she reaches a pinnacle of good press, especially if he or she is standing in Dear One's spotlight. Dear One does not allow competition. In his steady progression from just plain citizen, albeit one of our most questionable ones, to king, dictator, emperor, president for life, why not? Vladimir is. Dear One has simply moved from one level to the next. If he can't get something done one way, he assigns the task to an underling and tries another. Say this for the Donald. He's learned not to be seen doing harm himself. This he delegates. But it's tough to delegate an invasion of Portland, Seattle, Chicago, anywhere. No matter his adoration of the military, Dear One seems to get confused and sends his troops in on certainly questionable errands. With a shaky understanding of what the Constitution allows, he dispatches force to favorite bugbears in action. Clearly, he's not a fan of Black Lives Matter. He's entirely disdainful of civil rights, period. The pain and financial disaster of COVID-19 do not exist for him. Therefore, he needn't try to be sympathetic. He needn't try to lead the country into calmer waters and recovery, apart from standing on his little flat feet to repeat and repeat that he wants schools to reopen no matter what. The no matter what could kill a lot of people. Dear One has no trouble at all sleeping, or even a shaky hand applying his suntan. A king should look healthy. Concentrate on what matters. As Commander-in-Chief of the nation's armed forces, Dear One is weaponized to the point where resistance might be tantamount to suicide. To combat the coming martial law requires brains and bravery. To whom does the nation look at this time for both? Alas, to a Congress, to a Senate, that has simply disappeared in value and presence as every month the greatest deliberative body in the history of the world disappears for days at a time on Mitch McConnell-inspired errands. We have, and we're learning to know them increasingly well, leaders on the street. Millions of them, important people and some not, but a mass of disquiet that scares the bejesus out of the Donald. For us, elation and hope are the result of seeing these marchers, men and women younger than we are, more used to confrontation, who, at this moment anyway, aren't stopping to look for reason and validation as they approach the barricades. These are millions of woke protesters with whom in our minds we march and yell and raise our fists in opposition to centuries of misrule and conduct. At the other end of the scale, we watch in awe as our medical corps continues to try to beat back COVID-19, often against the seeming wishes of their own Republican governors and senators. It's not superstitious to hope for change, not in Dear One, nor really in Republicans, and not miraculously in the millions of Americans who have already decided the country needs to change. And it's not futile to hope for derailment of Dear One's ambitions, any more than it is to hope for a big wind that lifts Dear One's comb over and sends him flying back to Mar-a-Lago as though it were just Kansas, where, with time and good intent, we can forget him as he lives out his reclining years full of hydroxychloroquine and Flomax. I'm John Neufeld.
All opinions on side effects are those of John Neufeld and do not represent necessarily the opinions of Robin Hood Radio, robinhoodradio.com, CATV6, or any of the employees, volunteers, or underwriters of Tri-State Public Communications.